I never thought that Kershaw would ever go this route. I never did. I never did. You know, there was a time when I thought that Kershaw would always be kind of like my lesser favorite knife company. And for good reason. At the time, I was into Cold Steel. Cold Steel makes big, badass, huge, beat to hell kind of knives. And then all of a sudden, you got this. And it's not just this, because we all know that this is pretty damn huge in and of itself. You've already seen me do a review on this knife. So let's talk blades, everybody. That's what we're into today. This isn't the knife that I'm going to be talking about. Instead, it's going to be this knife that we're going to talk about. Yes, the extra large Strata. Now, the Strata knife is modeled after the Spanish Navaja, and I know I've already talked about it with the original size Strata, but the extra large Strata, that didn't sound right. I must have set it down really weird. Anyway, extra large Strata, somebody told me that it's actually a little bit more towards the original Navaja, because the Spanish Navaja was a humongous knife. So this was nowhere near the actual size, because it's the original size Strata. And there's an argument that someone said, yes, it is. No, it isn't. It's just a tad bit bigger, blah, 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 blah. Well, here's the bigger brother of this guy right here. And as I'm putting them side to side, you can see. You see that? One is bigger than the other. By a lot. Well, I shouldn't say by a lot, but by a decent amount. I gotta tell you, Kershaw to me was always the knife company that was strictly small knives that were made for EDC / tool usage and nothing else. This is probably their biggest folder they have that I know of, at least, the extra large Strata. I'm not going to be able to keep it in frame, but I'm going to do the very best I can. But look at that. All right, I'm going to try and look. It barely fits. Barely fits into frame. Unless I do this, I zoom out a little bit. You know, this thing is huge compared to, you know, this little guy, which is already still, and I call it the little guy, even though this is probably bigger than most of my folders. So, yeah, comfortably, I can carry this in my pocket. And surprisingly enough, every time I set this down, it makes that clunk noise. It makes me worry. And surprisingly enough, I can also confidently carry this big guy in my pocket. And yes, it has a deep carry pocket clip. Now, it has all the stuff that the original Strata has, just bigger. Bigger pivot, bigger blade, bigger handle. And I think the pocket clip is bigger as well. No. Okay, so it's about the same size. Same size pocket clip on a bigger knife. You would think they would probably use just a slightly bigger pocket clip because of the knife size. But, all right. Well, I guess we both learned something new today. Frame lock design. The over travel stop is built by this plate right here that is used for, you know, for that reason. Very nice. You got your stainless steel back frame right here, and then you got your G10 frame on the front presentation side. I don't understand why they had to put this design right here. I just don't get it. A lot of people like it. I don't see why that would match this. It just kind of seems a little funky, but hey, you know what? It's okay. It kind of grew on me, and I kind of like it. Got this indentation right here, I'm assuming, for your thumb, so when you go to flip this, you got a little bit of a place to put your thumb on here. So the flipper tab, I really like the fact that the flipper tab is not huge and sticking out. But now the original Navaja was made to be used opening it with two hands, which is one of the reasons why this swell right here in the original Navaja is a little bit as big, or the blade on the spine was bigger, and the handle was kind of thinner, just as this is right here, very similar to it. You're supposed to open it with two hands. and it makes a ratcheting noise anytime you hear it. So you would hear it as it would open. Now, the reason for that, I'm not entirely sure. I don't have an original Navaja, though I do have a couple of knives that are similar to it, like the Cold Steel Espada and the Shemp collaboration with Spyderco. But I gotta tell you, this is a new way of doing it. This is a lot lighter, this is a lot thinner, easier to carry with a deep carry pocket clip on both models, which on a bigger knife is kind of not really heard of, because, you know, when I put this in my pocket, the big dude, when I put this in my pocket, it literally takes up the entire pocket. I can feel it hit the bottom of the pocket, and it's still latched all the way to the top. So you can tell that your pocket is as deep as this knife goes, at least on my Wrangler jeans anyways, and Levi's. So I gotta tell you, this is a little bit better to carry. It's a lot lighter, it's a lot slimmer, and it doesn't reach your full length of your pocket. I mean, it almost does. You got about maybe about half an inch of room, or maybe an inch, all things considered. Okay, so you got maybe more than that. Okay, well, either way, it's a great knife. So I'm going to get into the specs of this so you guys understand what you're getting yourself into if you decide to purchase this knife. I got nothing but good things to say about it, and I am very glad that Kershaw is starting to up their game with better knives. Looking at 5.88 ounces, almost 6 ounces. So yeah, it's a little bit heavy, but for its size, it is relatively light. Nothing but good things to say about this knife, because I do have bigger knives, but I do not carry them because they take up more pocket space than anything else. So I'm going to start the measurement. Right here, you're looking at 5.5 inches on the blade with an overall 1 foot. That is 12 inches right there of awesome. And when it's closed, you're looking at 6.5 inches of handle in your flipping pocket. Runs on bearings, so it's nice and smooth. You got that drop shut close. We'll get into that as soon as I get into the width of things, so I'm going to bust out the calipers real quick. The handle, you are looking at 10.0. And on the blade, you're looking at a 1.4. Big knife. Alright, so I'm going to try and keep this in frame so that way you guys can see it. But I'm going to try and drop it. Okay, see, it drops shut pretty smoothly. The only complaint that I have is obviously EDCing a big knife. Even EDCing this knife right here as its smaller brother was a pretty hefty knife to carry lengthwise, but weight is fantastic. I don't really feel it in my pocket. It's very, very light and slim, so it doesn't really take up a lot of your pocket other than the obviousness that it is in there. Now the thing is, like I said, I was able to push this down on this little guy. It doesn't seem to bother me too much because it needs to have a little bit of give for this to be what it is. So opening it was a little rough for me because of the flipper tab and the detent being pretty aggressive on this knife. But once you play around with it, it works itself in and the detent loosens up a bit. This one is not the same, actually. This is a lot smoother, a lot easier to open. I kind of do have to do just a slight wrist flip. I don't really wrist flick. I don't really see myself fanning it open very, very aggressively. Just a decent, I'm going to try not to hit my tripod. But that was just me pressing on the button and holding on to the actual lock, or the scale that acts as a lock bar. Which, good advice. I need to tell you, somebody should have told me this before I purchased this knife so I can understand that if you put pressure on this part right here while trying to flip this open, you're going to find that you're putting more pressure on the detent ball, so that way the blade cannot be actuated. I'm actually pushing down with all my might as I'm holding this part down. As you're doing that, you're going to put a lot of pressure on that flipper tab. So my best suggestion, put it in that little indentation that you see right here. It's easy to feel, you don't have to look around for it, and it's much easier. And by that, you're not putting any pressure on the ball detent. So that's just a little, kind of knowing where to place your fingers while opening this gargantuan monster. This one I don't have too much trouble doing at all. But still, if I do put a little bit of pressure on this lock bar part, it will prevent the knife from actuating confidently anyways. But this is a huge knife, so whatever works for you, this is what works for me. I am going to tell you right now that there is a price difference between the two. They have gone down in price since their release date. So I want to say that this one is, after all things said and done, $75 plus tax, so around about a little bit over $80. And then this one being around about what? 85, 80, 85, 70. I can't remember, but I know that it was around about like $95 after tax and shipping and all that good and happy junk. But that depends on your shipping. If you really want to up your game on the shipping, it's going to cost, you know, upwards to anywhere over just a little over 100. But it's up to you. If you're into the humongo knives, if you're into the just collecting of it. Me, I like to transition from my normal size knives to larger knives if I feel I need to. It just depends on whether or not I feel like carrying around a big knife. And I do enjoy carrying big knives on me. I just don't like that nowadays knives are becoming smaller. I've noticed that. It's just like EDC knives. Boom, what do you got? A 2.5-inch blade. Oh, cool, man. Like, I was brought up in an era where the average 4-inch knife was cool, not the average 2 to 3-inch knife that you use to open up your puny little boxes, you know what I mean, or cut your little tiny zip ties. But a lot of people like that stuff because it's a knife for tools and whatever. But me, I like my knife a big hefty size. It's just I like the wow factor when you pull it out your pocket. I like the fact that it is useful, at least to me, anyways. So, you know. It just depends on your era and what you were brought up with whatever blades you're used to carrying, used to, you know, fidgeting with, whatever. I mean, this is just cool collecting factor if you're into Kershaw. This is the first time, at least for me, since I've worked at a knife store, that I can actually say that Kershaw is actually it's climbing up there in my likelihood of knives that I am starting to like now. Because they're coming out with more and more good stuff. Now, I've seen better knives, but I never pulled the trigger on it. But I've always been a fan of the Spanish Navaja, so when I saw these two, I was in a conflict of whether to get one or the other. I ended up getting both. So, anyways, that's my review on the Kershaw Strata Extra Large. And, of course, continuation of this. And I'd have carried it for a couple weeks now, and I ended up falling in love with this thing so much that I don't want to beat it up too much. It's a great knife. Now I think my next goal would be to find an original Spanish Navaja, but those are really, really hard to find. I find a lot of knockoffs, and I'm not going to waste my money on that. So anyways, if you guys find this material great, show some support. I really do appreciate it. Go ahead and slash that like button, stab that subscribe, slice that bell icon so you guys know when I post new stuff in these craziest of times. Please, everybody, be kind, be safe, carry responsibly, and I'll see you all good people in the next video.